9.5 years ago, I entered Teen Challenge. Broken, homeless, 56 years old, without a clue what's going on. A week, about 10 days after I was there, Jeff Hill came in to be my roommate. My life has never been the same. And there was a couple weeks after that, I think about 3 weeks after that, one night as he turned off, many of you heard this, some of you haven't, he was turning off the light, and for some reason God allowed me to be the witness to what and where you're sitting today. He was turning off the light and he said, we're going to have some hallway houses. We're not going halfway this time. I'm from a little town about 120 miles west. I didn't even know what a halfway house was. And I felt guilty when I got to Teen Challenge because the only thing on my record was a speeding ticket 15 years before. But 5.5 months later, graduating from Teen Challenge 60-day program, went back to work on my marriage of 38 years to a place where I just left 5 years of depression and all the red flags were flying when I got home. And 5.5 months later I relapsed. Jeff had been keeping track of me and he said, I can't tell you the exact words in church here, but he said, get your down here. You have no idea the spiritual warfare you're up against. By that time, Serenity Village 1 had just opened. And I met a person there who was one of my standard bearers, loved me unconditionally. I just admired him, fell in love with him, he fell in love with me in a godly way. And he's been an inspiration to me ever since, always keeping a track, encouraging my writings, asking how things are going. And so I'd like to welcome one of the original 5 to just a blessing to say, here's Mark Horvath.
I don't even know if I need this. Can everyone hear me? I'm in the back. My voice carries. I'm going to shut this thing off. All right. Is that off? That's off. Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. Back here. It's really hot. Let's look out here. Guys, amazing. Amazing thing. You know, almost 10 years. I can remember it was 5 of us. I can remember it was Corey, Mike Shea, myself, Jeff, and Vladimir. That was it. 2004. I had, I'll just tell you a little bit of myself, and then kind of we'll get into the message, but I didn't know Jeff. I had met Jeff. I was in treatment for I don't forget it, it was time I think. I was all set to go to Minnesota Challenge. And it was a Thursday night, and I walked back from a meeting over at Central Pacific. There was a card sitting there. It said, Serenity Village, Jeff Hill. I thought, I'll give this guy a call. So it's Thursday night. I'm all set, county funded, paid, ready to go. And I gave Jeff a call. He said, why don't you come out and check out the house? So that was the house over on Independence. And on Saturday, my mom picked me up. I went over and I was waiting for Jeff. He was late, as usual. And when he rolled up, you know, we kind of got the same personality. Who's this dude? I'm sure he was thinking, who's this dude? And, but I knew that I knew. On Monday, I went back to my counselor. And I said, hey, I want to go to this place. And Tuesday, I moved in. Just like that. It was a total God thing. Had no clue what we were doing. I didn't know. I just was a resident. I didn't know what was going to take place. All of a sudden, we're planning this big Christmas party for underprivileged women and children. I'm just doing whatever. I had no clue what we were doing. And this is the fruit of it 9.5 years later. I was in Doug's position for 4.5 years. My life totally transformed. I regained all the material and worldly things that one could ever dream of. And then selfishness of the addict in me started to rise, and I got it, and I can say this today, that it's part of my identity, we're going to talk about today. I got really radical towards Jeff, towards God. I was doing things not because I wanted to, it's because I had to. I was taking phone calls, and I got to go get this guy and pick this guy to detox work. 2 years ago, I was doing that without question. All right? I mean, it was automatic. And I separated from the ministry. Thought I was, that I had it all together. And I found out the hard way what happens when you separate from the bond that holds us together. And I went down hard, real hard. And for 2 years, I was out doing my thing. Lost my daughter, lost the home that I bought, lost my job, lost all my friends, most of all, was totally separated from God. I had nowhere to go, nowhere to turn. I was, smoking crack every day, drinking every day. I was on a suicide mission, And this is after God had restored my whole life. So, it's nice to acquire time in this program. Like, when people ask me that, how long you've been sober, you know what? I got up this morning, and the miracle is, I haven't had a kid. Amen. All right. And that's for all of us. Because, if you're like me, that's what I do. If I'm not connected, if I'm not in God's plan here, if I'm not doing what it takes, that's what happens to me. So, people that are, just moved into Serenity Village or are new to this thing, there's something special that happens here. I've had the privilege now. I want to thank the guys that I've been able to work with, Mark and Brandon, and, all my friends here, Will, because we got to carry the message. All right? And without carrying the message, I mean, that's what it says. I was never a big AA guy. I hated AA. Here, my mom is 40 years from recovery. I said, no, God's got it. God's got it if you give it to him. All right? You got to give it to him for him to control it. And I always thought that I had it under control, and I was different. My addiction was different, and I needed this special treatment, wherever treatment I was in. I've been in a dozen or so of them. But anyway, the miracle is that a couple years ago, just over a couple years ago, I don't know how it happened, but I knew that I had to get back into recovery. I wasn't going to live this way. And I just made the decision. How I did it, I can't tell you, but I humbled myself enough to go back and find and ask for help to the people that I knew. And since that day, 24 hours at a time, I've been able to, put together some recovery again. And the nice thing is that God's gifts don't come with a gift receipt. So the 4.5 years that I had prior to my relapse just don't go away. They may get put on the back burner because I put them there. All right? But all I got to do is reshift my life, and things are reignited again. Right. So I went back into this recovery deal with a whole different approach. And I started looking around at guys like Jack and a few of the other guys know here that are involved in the Alcoholics Anonymous program, and I watched what they're doing. Gary, we're talking about Jack and a few other guys. All of them are sponsoring guys. All of them go to meetings. All of them have a personal relationship with God. And all of them, they help other guys. That's just the way it works. They were in service to other people. So I started doing that. And because of that today, I got a sponsor, steps. And I don't mean just kind of tiptoe through it. I got somebody who was diligent and ran me through the program of recovery outlined in this book. Okay? This book, combined with biblical teaching of the law of nature, became my life. Now, if I don't continue to stay in God's will and stay in this book, it'll be gone like that. One bad decision. I've proven that. So, I'm grateful to be here today. Jeff called me about 10:30 on Saturday night. It's like, I said to my girlfriend, I said, I wonder what Jeff wants. And he was scattered, going 100 miles an hour, and getting ready for his trip. And I said, yeah, I'd be honored to come and do it. So, and I really am. I'm that's not true. But, you know, my addictions led me places that I thought they would never go. And before we take the offering, I picked out a song here. I didn't pick it out. My mom picked it up. Because, you know, we've all had serious consequences. In 2004, trying to come to Serenity Village, I'd experienced a lot of consequences in my life. But I was on treatment at Eden House in 2004. Went for a routine physical. And the doctor, the results came back, and the doctor sat me down and he said, Mark, you got a serious problem. Serious, not that serious problem. All the time. Mark, you have football AIDS. And I was shocked, I wasn't surprised because of the way I was living. And the song you're about to hear is a testimony to God's plans. Because the minute I heard that, I went out, I bought some crack, I went to the bar, and I stayed out for 3 days, contemplating how I was going to take my life. Eden House took me back in. My counselor at the time is now my roommate, still to this day. He led me down this road of recovery. He's got 20 years of recovery. He's friends with Jack and a few of the other guys in here. And so his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His plans are way different than our plans. And the name of the song is The Plans I Have for You by Mark and Louise. So we pass the basket. Please listen, and then we'll get into the message where Jeff so graciously prepared, and I'll give my 2 cents. So, Brett.
He's making a way. He's making a way. He's making a way. somebody right now. When you can't see what tomorrow holds, yesterday is through. God said, remember, I know. Thank you, Jesus. The plans I have. See, you just need to remember that I know. You can't figure it out, because I know. My ways are higher than your ways. My thoughts are higher than your thoughts. And I know. He said, I know. You're not going to be afraid. I
So if you don't think God, you're sadly mistaken. If it's by chance you're sitting in these pews, I don't think that that's the case. He directs our paths. Sometimes it's very evident, and sometimes, it takes a little coercion or a little bit of some consequences or whatever it may be. But if you're here and have the opportunity that Serenity Village presents, my suggestion is that you grasp hold of these spiritual principles that are being taught to you every week and run with them. We're going to get back. I'm going to go off the outline, but I always want to get back to the basics, and that's what I had to do after I came back after my 2-year relapse. And, I got to remember the 3 pertinent ideas that it says in chapter on how it works. A, that I'm alcoholic or an addict, and I could not manage my own life. B, that no human power could restore me to sanity. And C, that God could and would if you were sorry. Amen. Period. It doesn't say of a God. It doesn't say some God. It says of God could and would if you were sorry. And as I go through the steps, I always wanted to be the guy that went to the 12th step. See, in the 12th step it says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We carried this message to other alcoholics and practiced these principles in all our affairs. See, I wanted the spiritual awakening after the first step, without doing the other 11. Okay, that was me, and that's just my nature. And I found it didn't work that way. So getting somebody that knows a little bit more about the program of recovery is what I've had to do. And, it's Jeff was it 2 weeks ago, so eloquently laid out steps 6 and 7. And I really got a lot out of that because most of the people in this room, or all of the people in this room, are very talented people. If we can survive out there, we can survive anywhere. All right? If we can manipulate, con, steal, cheat, whatever we got to do to get our way out there, if we can redirect the effort that we put into our addiction, into our recovery, we've got it made. All right? And that's the key. But for me, like Jeff said, I had no character to back it up. So I'd get so far, I'd rebuild my life, and then it would crumble. And this cycle repeated for
30 plus years. So the part of steps 8 and 9, or the steps 8 and 9 are not going to work unless you do a solid 6 and 7, which aren't going to work unless you do a solid 4 and 5, which aren't going to work unless you do a solid 1, 2, and 3. Okay? And I always thought 6 and 7 were kind of like the forgotten steps, and then steps 8 and 9 is where I've always personally stumbled. Because by the time I reach here, this part of my recovery, I've kind of got my life back a little bit. I've got my job, I've got people trusting me again, and so I forget about all the damage that I caused. Okay? Step 8 reads, we made a list of all the persons in the harm and became willing to make amends to them all. Well, if you did a proper 4-step, your list is pretty comprehensive of who you've got to talk to and go make things right. The definition of amend is very simple. There's, you can get into a big rendition of what it means, but it's to right a wrong. Okay? We amend something we did wrong. That takes some character to do that, and it takes some humility. I always thought that I would be humbled after doing steps 8 and 9. The fact of the matter is that it takes humility to get in and actually do the 8th and 9th step. Why that is, for me, is that I was afraid of going to the people that I had wronged. Because if I went to them and had to admit to them that I offended them or did something to them that upset them, that I was afraid or was fearful of what they may say. I have a brother, one of my brothers, who I still to this day have not made an amend to, because I am afraid that he's going to say, Mark, I don't want nothing to do with you. All right? And I have to learn that I'm going to have to accept that someday, if that's the case. Okay? There's others, though, as it talks about in the big book, and most people you'll find are going to embrace you and join in your so-called your bandwagon, and they're going to respect you for coming to them, for even having the courage to face them and admit your fault. Step 9 says we make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when they do so would injure them or others. I think to begin this process, the first person that you got to make an amend with is yourself. For me, I had done a lot of horrible things to the people that I love the most, especially my parents, my daughter, that I just walked out of her life on. My parents for many years, I just walked over them, my family, the people that really cared about me, and I had a hard time forgiving myself for that. How can I go and ask people to be forgiven of something if I couldn't even forgive myself? So I think to get this process started, we really need to examine, have we forgiven ourselves, and have we made it right with ourselves? Now, if you're not working a program of recovery, it's pretty hard to do that. Because if you always done what you always did, you always get what you always got. Period. So in the big book, it lays it out on page 76. Let me just before we read that, I wanted to read this. This just jumps ahead to page 82. And this isn't on your handout, but it says, sometimes we hear the alcoholic or addict say, I put that in there because some people are into alcohol, say that the only thing that he do is keep sober. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is yet a long way from making good to the wife, parents, or children from years he is so shockingly treated. Passing all understanding is the patient's mothers, wives, children, and loved ones had with alcoholics and addicts. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, or perhaps would be dead. Period. And I know for myself, without the people in my life, my mom, my dad, God bless him, who's passed on, and the people that in this community that have stood by me, I wouldn't be here today. Because when I needed to come back with my tail between my legs, they were the the only ones here. So, page 76 in the big book reads as this: now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We had a list of all the persons we had harmed and to whom we were willing to make amends. We made it when we took our inventory. And just to stop right there, some of the people on your list, or some of the people you need to make amends to may not be on your list. Your inventory deals with your fears, your resentments, and your sex conduct. But there may be people you need to make amends to. And I can think of a few of my personal ones. How about the employer that you padded your expense account on? Or you stole money from. Those are people that you don't have resentments towards. They should have resentments towards you, if anything else. So you have a pretty good start with your 4-step, but you really need to look at the people that you screwed over during your addiction. Now we go to our fellows and repair the damage that is done in the past. We attempt to sweep it away the debris which has accumulated out of our efforts to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. And we ask through prayer. The willingness is all it says. It says that, that we became willing to make amends to the people that we harmed. There's a lot of people that I don't even want to see anymore, let alone go on and admit that I had done something to them and ask, forgive them and ask for forgiveness. So we through prayer, I've learned that, that I've been able to muster it up. Now, if I made this, it's going to take me a lifetime. And I think for a lot of other people, it's the same way. So this isn't a race, as long as we get started and do it. Remember, it is agreed at the beginning, and this is key. Jeff always talks about this. When we first get here, I'll do anything, Jeff, I'll do anything, Doug. And then a month later, I'm not doing that. Because I was the same way. Okay? I explained it. It took me 3.5 years to get to that point at first, but it says that we go at the beginning, we would go to any lengths for a victory over alcohol. The alcoholic is like a tornado, roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead, affections have been uprooted. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. I've always, I got this thing with sobriety. To me, sobriety is just sobriety. Until we get into full-blown recovery, all right? We haven't even scratched the surface. And in order to do that, it takes work. Sobriety to me is putting the plug in the jug, and it's a good start. But to get into full-blown recovery, it takes working these steps and enlarging our spiritual life. And as it says in the Pertinent Ideas, God could and would if he were sought. Because I know when I was out there on the street, I was seeking something. All right? And I was doing whatever it took to get what I needed. So now that I'm here, it's, being here, you've got to be pretty fortunate. It's going to come to you because you're surrounded by it. But in order to absorb it, you've got to go after it. All right? Just like you did doing your thing out on the street. Jeff left something out. He is like the farmer who came up out of the cycle and someone to find his home room. And it says, to finish that, it says, to his wife he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Mom. He didn't grab the wind stopped blowing." When we come out of our addiction, we don't even realize sometimes the effect that we had on other people, the damage that we caused. I try to explain the analogy like this. When I was out doing my thing and going down the road, and I'm just throwing my garbage out of the car, right? Both sides of the roads are getting littered. There's a mess all over. It's a path of destruction, right? So I get back into recovery, and slowly but surely I clean up my side of the road by working the first 7 steps. And my side's looking pretty good by about this time, everything's cleaned up. What about the other side of the road? It's still a mess, all right? You're still littered with all the debris, all the wreckage. that I caused. And so I better get busy in cleaning it up if I want to keep this program of recovery going. And it's not going to get cleaned up by itself. So that's where steps 8 and 9 come in, where I need to actively seek out people that I've hurt and admit my wrongs to them and do something about it. Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all. We had to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Because I was really good at pointing other people's faults out. But boy, when I had to admit mine, that was painful. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning of meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, and kindness and love. And that's actually your 9-step prayer. You know, you ask God to show you the same type of tolerance that people have with you. And if you do that on a daily basis, you'll get to the point, I believe, that you become more willing to approach them and try to right some of these wrongs that you had. There may be some wrongs that can never fully be right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could. There may be some people that have passed on in your life that you can't obviously approach anymore. One of them was, for example, is my father. He did everything for me. It's a guy that I just walked all over. But I know that he would want me to continue. He got to see me sober and living a life of recovery when Serenity Village first started. And we used to, Jack and I and Keith, who used to be one of the first guys in the Serenity Village, we used to go golfing all the time. And so I know my dad, the way I can carry on my amend to him is to continue to live proper, healthy life of recovery. I don't have to do anything more than that. There's also some people that you probably don't want to ever see again. It says in a book that I've got, a program for you. It's a book on how to work the steps of that. There's 4 types of amends. There's the nows that we do immediately, and those are the people that we can approach probably that that are going to say, hey, you know what? I'm just glad you're getting yourself together, and they're going to encourage you and bless you and try to keep you going on and get you keep this path going. There's the laters that you just, you'll get around to them sooner or later. There's the maybes, and then there's the nevers. So you can kind of spread out your amend list based on those 4 types of amends. The main thing is that we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without survival or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet, we don't crawl before anyone. What that means is that there's some people that aren't going to really take you. You might come up to them and they're not going to have nothing to, have nothing to do with you. And if you think that you have to do anything more, it says in the big book that you don't. You've stood your ground. You've made your attempt to make things right. And if they don't want to accept or they have a choice to accept or deny your willingness to make the amendment. And it's not up to you to try to continue to badger them for forgiveness. You're going to drive yourself crazy. So that's just something that says in the big book. You made your peace, and it's up to them now. The ball's in their court. In the 12 steps and 12 traditions, steps 8 and 9 are concerned with personal relations. First, we take a look back, try to discover where we've been at fault. Next, we make a vigorous attempt to repair the damage we have done. And third, having thus cleaned away the debris of the past, we consider how, with our newfound knowledge of ourselves, we may develop the best possible relations with everyone we know. Learning how to live in the greatest peace, partnership, and brotherhood with all men and women of whatever description is a moving and fascinating adventure. Every AA has found that he can take little headway in this new adventure of living until he first backtracks and makes an accurate and unsparing survey of the human wreckage that he has left in his wake. Romans 12:18 says, "Wherever it is concerned with me, I make peace with everyone." And I think that's kind of what the scripture is relating to what they're saying in the big book. Why, we cried, should God bygones be bygones? Why do we think of these people at all? There were some of the ways in which fear conspired with and tried to hinder our making a list of all the people we had harmed. This attitude, of course, is the end result of purposeful forgetting. It's an attitude which can only be changed by a deep and honest search of our motives and actions. I said before that, my biggest fear about approaching some of the people, and my greatest fear, didn't it, but, some of the things that happened during our addiction, I had a hard time going to her and talking to her about the things because I was ashamed of the things I did. I was afraid of what she was going to say to me. Because it was difficult to admit some of the things that, they weren't so pleasant. And so I had to man up and accept whatever consequences came my way. Going on to step 9, good judgment, a careful sense of timing, and courage and prudence. These are the qualities we shall need when we take step 9. There should be those who ought to be dealt with just as soon as we become reasonably confident that we can maintain our sobriety. There would be those to whom we can make only partial restitution, lest complete disclosures do them or others more harm than good. There will be other cases where action ought to be deferred, and others still in which by the very nature of the situations we shall never be able to make direct personal contact at all. We've already talked about that a little bit as far as what the program for you said. The main thing that I found out is we got to get started somewhere. And it doesn't have to be all at once. My list of people that I need to approach, like I said, it'll probably take me a lifetime. And, it's not just people, it's some institutions. There's a financial part to this, too, that it talks about in the big book that is very important for people to repay their debts, or at least make an attempt to. And I've always had a problem with that. Because I thought, I'm doing good, got my life back together. Well, what do I need to go stir up wreckage of the past for? But it's not what it says in the big book. It says that we have to be thorough, or the chances of us going back to our addiction increase. So, it's a process that I found probably the most difficult 2 steps for me. It's where I've stumbled in the past, and I still have a very difficult time moving forward. However, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of usefulness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We'll intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize as we move forward. That has been known as the promises of AA. And I can tell you from first-hand experience, that is the truth. When I work with guys now, I look at their life, and as we get to this time, this part of the recovery plan, I look back and see their spiritual life is strong, they're starting to develop good friendships, they've got a good job, they're working on getting their families back, And, they're starting to love themselves again. And it's pretty awesome to see. Jeff threw down a couple scriptures here, and he wanted me to share these with you. So before we go to break, let's just kind of go over the scriptures and how they pertain to steps 8 and 9. Mark 11:25 says, when you stand praying, when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive your sins. Forgiveness is a necessity for amends. And I said before, I think it all starts with forgiving ourselves. It's a reciprocal effect that if we can forgive ourselves, it will be a lot easier for us to start forgiving other people and asking forgiveness. Matthew 18:21-22. Then Peter came up and said, Lord, how many times may my brother sin against me, and I forgive him and let it go? As many as up to 7 times, Jesus answered him. I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. It's hard for me to fathom that kind of forgiveness, but I know one thing that it does say in the Bible. You can't say that you love God and hate man at the same time. It just doesn't work. And, the resentment piece is that thing that you say you're drinking poison and expecting someone else to get sick. And for me, I have to let all that stuff go. All that bitterness, all that resentment, all that dislike and goodwill towards people. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, For God did not give us a spirit of timidity, of cowardice, of craving and cringing and fawning fear, but He has given us a spirit of power and of love and of calm and of well-balanced mind and discipline and self-control. It has to do with asking God to help you make your amends in order to become willing. I don't know, there's a lot of times I think that, where I've had the opportunity to approach somebody, and I thought I'd turn my back and say, I'll do that next time, or I'll do that when I see them again. And it's because I haven't prepared myself, and I asked for God's help in the process. Amends open the door to blessings. Matthew 5:9. Blessed, enjoying inevitable happiness, spiritually prosperous, with life, joy, and satisfaction in God's favor and salvation, regardless of the outward conditions, are the makers and maintainers of peace, for they shall be called the sons of God. Bottom line is when we humble ourselves and allow God to work through us, I think that other people see that in us and they start to give us, a break. I know there's some people that I've gone to that I thought were going to tell me to hit the road, Jack. And said, Mark, you know what, if there's any way I can help you in your recovery and support you, let me know. And, that's a pretty good feeling that people are willing to even acknowledge me after the things that I do. I believe that that's the power of God working through this program, through the steps, and through a sponsor. Like I said, I don't know exactly how to go about this process. It's an area of my life that I've stumbled and that I've had a difficulty doing. But I know that the amends that I have made have definitely helped. And I would encourage you to get a sponsor, work off of your 4-step list, and examine your conscience, and start. You got to start somewhere. So as we go into the break, you jumped in there on the bottom. Yes, what stood out to you, and who do you need to forgive? Whether that be yourself or someone close to you, you wanted to share in your group. So again, it's a pleasure and an honor to come back to Serenity Village and speak, to see this group of people and the way this ministry has grown. It's amazing, man. It's amazing. I can think back, and we used to have these Bible studies on Tuesday nights in a living room with 5 guys. 5 guys sitting in that living room. We thought that was cool. Then we got another house and another house, and then we see this. grasp hold of this opportunity, you know, it's a blessing. There's nothing like that. Without Serenity Village, I wouldn't be here. No matter what happened afterwards, it's the glue that held me together, especially in my most difficult times. I want to thank you for your time and just, you know, respect the people that here are trying to help you. I just hope Jeff has a great time on this trip. He comes back refreshed, and I know one thing, he's got your back. He really got your back. The guy, his heart is right, man. I mean, look at the fruit of this deal. It's amazing. God bless you all. Thank you.